مساء الخير.
سلام.
هلو.
Hello.
هلو. هاي.
Hello.
سلام. Hello. سلام
نعم.
everybody. Okay. Good to see so many names. Some I know, some I don't. أهلا وسهلا بالجميع. السلام عليكم everybody.
السلام عليكم.
And عليكم السلام. I want to welcome you, those who are from Gaza, the West Bank, all of Palestine, from the diaspora, and from all the solidarity communities around the world. And we're gathering here because we want to first regulate our nervous systems and our spirit, and because we're carrying more than we are supposed to carry on our own. And the idea is that we can help each other, support each other in what we're holding, and support each other in how we can help and support more people and be able to share the medicine with more people around the world. So we're going to start first by grounding and arriving to where we are, whether you are in Palestine and you're able to take a moment to rest and breathe. And I know that it's very cold right now in Palestine, so maybe we can also use the breath to warm us. So just take a few seconds to arrive in your body. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم اجعلنا مفاتيح خير مغاليق شر. Rub your hands together. Yeah, it's beautiful to see where people are coming in from in the chat. You can share where you're coming. And you can also share where you're from originally, just if it feels aligned. Okay. And now we're going to take a few deep breaths. And we're going to take the breath from the nose. And when we're going to release from the mouth with an open jaw. Okay. We're going to take a few of these deep breaths until we feel our body settling. If we can feel our weight sinking more into the place we're sitting. And just take deep breaths. إذا سهل علينا, if it's easy to close our eyes, we can close them, but don't feel obliged, especially if you're in Gaza, no need to close your eyes. Making sure that every breath is reaching the belly. So put one of your hands on your stomach to make sure that the in-breath is coming all the way to the stomach. And as I said, when we release the breath, we make sure that the jaw is open and we breathe out. And now we're going to take a deeper breath and we're going to do box breathing. So breathing 4 in, holding the breath for 4 counts, and then releasing for 4 counts. Breathing in 4, holding for 4, and breathing out for 4. Breathing in 4, holding for 4, releasing for 4. taking a breath in, counting for 4 in, holding it for 4, breathing out for 4. And even when you breathe out, hold the breath out on 4.
Yeah. يديها كمان.
Breathing in for 4, hold it for 4, release for 4, hold it with the breath out for 4, and take a breath in. Hold it and breathe out. Hold the breath out for 4, breathe in. Now we're gonna pull the shoulders up to the ears, and we're gonna make fists, just so that we can get our neck and back to relax if it was a long day. And you hold the breath, and you put pressure on the hands. And you breathe out, and you allow for the shoulders to sink down 2 more times. And release, let the shoulders down. And one more time, all the pressure up. And breathe out. And just feel the difference if you can just move your shoulders in a circular way. And feel how your chest is feeling, if it's able to open some more. You have more space here. Now we're going to breathe 7 breaths in and 11 breaths out. So the outer breath is longer than the in breath. Again, 7 breaths in, 11 out. The outer breath is longer than the in breath. Keep repeating. The out breath is longer than the in breath. And now we're going to introduce a mantra. For those who practice Islam, you say Alhamdulillah on the in breath and Astaghfirullah wa atubu ilayh on the out breath. So Astaghfirullah wa atubu ilayh is longer, just to make sure that the out breath is longer. The in breath, Alhamdulillah, on the out breath, Astaghfirullah wa atubu ilayh, slowly saying it. In English, you can say peace when you take the breath in, or thank you. And when you let the breath out, you're going to say, I'm grateful for that which I have in my life. So that breathing in with the breath in, alhamdulillah, breath out, la ilaha, astaghfirullah wa atubu ilayh, ونطلع the zafir, the exit is longer than the in breath. If you prescribe to see if it's sat, nam on the in, and it is ad gurena me, jugad gurena me, sat gurena me, siri gurena me on the out. You can also choose your own mantra. The idea is basically to ensure that the in breath is short, the out breath is long. And of course, if you're working with someone from our background, this is what makes a very big difference in our nervous system if we are using Quranic texts. And that's what we will be talking about now. And now we're keeping the mantra and we're just going massage. We're massaging all the way. You just keep massaging all the ears. With the headphone. And you're repeating the same breath as you massage the ears. You're repeating the breath in is short, the breath out is longer, and you're just getting used to massaging the ears. It's a polyvagal exercise. It gives a signal to our body to go from fight, flight, fawn into rest and digest. Along with this breath, also the 7-11. So it's a very good exercise when you're tense and you just want to come back to your body. Simple grounding. Now we're gonna just put two hands, the thumbs touching each other, and we're just gonna continue the same breath, and we're just moving our hands, breathing deeply. And again, close your eyes if you are in a safe, held place. If you are in a place like Gaza, do not close your eyes. Stay with us. Eyes open. And we're just gonna massage the hands from the shoulders, from from the back. You just massage it and you go down your hands. Okay. And I hope you arrived in your body and you're ready for us to begin. So Danielle, I'm going to ask you to lower the Quran, please. Thank you. So the first thing we're going to start with today is just to give you an idea. The reason why we're doing this is because we know that there's so many people who are trying to help Palestinians in goodwill. Some of it is just personal people who have connected with families in Gaza. They're raising funds for them. They've become in contact with them for the past 3 years, and there's been an attachment and a bond that's happened with people in Gaza while they're trying to do that. There's also, of course, we have some therapists who are providing support to Palestinians, whether be it in Palestine or also in the diaspora, and to activists. And we also have people who work on a daily basis with Palestinians, whether be it also in the diaspora or in the motherland. And what we want to do is to be able to support you in how you are able to support others, but also on how you take care of yourself when you're working with Palestinians. And the things that I will share now are based on my own experience from working within the West Bank with former child prisoners and former prisoners, as well as my own healing journey, and also with working with Palestinians who have been exiled from Gaza, whether be it receiving medical treatment in Qatar or in the UK or in Belgium. And the one thing that I want to share is we're gonna have to do it I'm gonna have to kind of do the division, which is not comfortable, between saying the difference between how to work with people in the West Bank, in Gaza, which is a separation that's forced on us, but it also affects our nervous system and how we are able to receive support. So this is why I will be using these terms which separate us instead of, connecting us. And from my experience, one of the most important things to understand when working with Palestinians in the whole, not only without separating where we are and where we're from. Every Palestinian currently around the world has been affected by the genocide. That's the first thing to understand. You don't have to be in Gaza alone to directly feel the impact. Of course, people in Gaza are suffering the horrors of the genocide directly, but also Palestinians in the West Bank are suffering from the occupation, and there's also the Palestinians in the diaspora who have suffered the Nakba and everything that comes after the Nakba. And to give you an idea that from my travels and working with people, the genocide has activated also people's traumas from their own personal traumas and their own, not personal, also collective traumas. So when I worked with people from the indigenous communities in the US, I noticed that their bodies basically woke up and there was much more trauma being evident and activated within them since the genocide in Palestine. Many of the Iraqis, of the Afghanis, of people who have experienced dispossession, colonization, occupation, their bodies have also been activated and awakened by this genocide. So it's not only the Palestinians, but it's also the collective that that has awoken. Of course, there are different levels. The direct impact that is in Gaza is horrific, but it's also important to understand that when we are connecting and dealing with people from different backgrounds, that they might have also been activated and they don't understand why they're activated. But it's actually because of the genocide, because of the images, because what happens in our bodies is now we finally have proof that there is intergenerational trauma and ancestral trauma. So for example, for Palestinians in the diaspora who haven't experienced living under occupation, but their grandparents have been exiled and they've experienced the Exodus and the Nakba, their genes get activated when they started hearing the news coming in from Gaza. Our bodies don't differentiate between the here and now they understand also sensory stimuli. And the sensory stimuli that we have been receiving since the genocide began is very similar to that of the Nakba. And for many people in the diaspora, they have been activated and their bodies are screaming and they don't understand what is happening in their bodies because they're not in Palestine. So they don't understand that this is connected directly to their ancestral trauma. And the ancestral trauma wakes up if there is similar stimuli in the sense of any of the sensations. So being able to look at images that are reminiscent of what their grandparents watched, smells and sense skin stimulation, as well as, of course, hearing all the stories that are coming out. And for many of us, the images that were coming out were people were just juxtaposing them with pictures from the Nakba of 1948 and the Naksa in 1967. And for many people, as I said, from Iraq, from Afghanistan, who understand what it means to be in war, Syrians, of course, it was the wound is still gushing, and it has been reactivated by what is happening in Palestine. And the reason I think it's very important to notice, because many people don't understand what is happening in their own bodies, and they try to go to therapy, and the therapists don't connect it to what is happening in the collective. And it's a way that the Western modalities think of more individualized cases. They look at each of us as an individual. They don't look at the collective and how the collective could impact the individual. So somebody going as an Iraqi going to a therapist in the US and saying that there's, they're suffering symptoms that can look like anxiety, that can look like fibromyalgia, they can be like things that are happening somatically within their bodies and their illnesses. And the therapists and the doctors will just try to signal out the problem with them as an individual without saying, oh, this might be connected to what is happening in Palestine, and you being able to see images coming out that are reminiscent of what you and your families have experienced. And when we think about it in this context, this is why a genocide is considered a crime against humanity, all of humanity, not only a group of people that are specifically enduring it, because it reaches the entire humanity, anyone who is alive at this moment of time. And it's very important when we are working with people to understand this and to have it in the back of our mind that you don't have to be from Gaza specifically to be having something that is intrusive right now. And in terms of how we look at the Western modality and how different groups react to different trauma, one thing that we've noticed in people, specifically in the Palestinian diaspora, is that the triggers can be extremely high. And there's a lot of anxiety, and we've seen a lot of illnesses surface, a lot of lupus, a lot of autoimmune diseases, a lot of eczema, a lot of diseases that are brought up from anxiety, but they are built from the ancestral trauma waking up. And what we need to understand is for Palestinians within the West Bank and Palestinians in Gaza, the main difference between them and the diaspora is the isolation and the individualism that they have to survive in living outside of Palestine. Whereas the collective in Palestine, when we are enduring trauma, we are enduring it in the collective, and that actually doesn't lower extremely, but it makes a difference in the way that our bodies respond to the trauma, because we are held by the container, we are held by the community, we are held by our tribe, versus Palestinians who have been living outside in the diaspora alone. It's a very different kind of trauma, because they're also supposed to expect it to operate within the Western colonialist capitalist system on their own, and they don't have the community to hold them together. So whenever I'm traveling around the world, I always tell the Palestinians that you need to be in a community, you need to be in a tribe, you need to be finding your Palestinians, Arabs, people around you that can support you, because that's the most important thing for their survival outside. So when you are dealing with people in the diaspora, keep that also in mind, that what we need the most is to have the community. And what they're lacking is the community support, and that is very important for them to be able to continue, because that's what holds people in the West Bank and in Gaza still able to survive and to be resilient. And now when we look at for the main problems when dealing with people in the West Bank and 48, 48 in the West Bank, I think we have the highest, because I come from that group. I think we have the highest level of paranoia. So in terms of being even in a setting where people talk to us and ask us questions, we are always second guessing because we're living under the police state and we're living under an apartheid state. And that means that you're always monitored, that whatever you say on social media, even on WhatsApp, even on Signal, anywhere, you are always monitored, and this can turn from one word into imprisonment. And we've seen it since the beginning of the genocide, how the Israelis, if you put a like on a post, if you are in Palestine 48, you are immediately arrested and you are given a sentence of 6 months. Some people have spent 2 years in house arrest for social media. One of our friends from Jerusalem, I think 1 year for just sharing a poem, has nothing to do with actually sharing physical things, but just shared a poem about occupation, and that meant 1 whole year inside prison. So there's this a huge fear for people from communicating with the outside world, from communicating even within the community, feeling safe to communicate with each other. So there's a lot of mistrust within the community, and this is why talk therapy is not it's not something that we prescribe to, and that it's not something that we recommend also for people in the West Bank because of this trauma. And for people inside the West Bank, Palestine 48, and in Gaza, they are all falling under the continuous trauma. There's no such thing as PTSD, and we cannot be treated for PTSD. And also for Palestinians from Gaza who are now in asylum somewhere, or they are in the diaspora in Europe, or they are in Egypt or Qatar, wherever they are still in a continuous trauma because their family members are still in Gaza. So until that is solved, until the issue and the genocide ends and fully stops in Palestine, none of us are in a state of peace. We're not getting to the post. We're not at the post until the whole land is liberated. And when people say like, what is the end healing? Because people want like a magical solution. Our healing is the liberation of Palestine. That would be the healing that we need collectively in order for us to even get to the point of healing from our individual traumas. But in the meantime, we have a duty to take care of ourselves and we have a duty to care for others. And this is also in minding and understanding that we are not in a situation of post trauma. We are in a constant state of trauma. We're in a continuous complex trauma. And this means that our responses are very different than people who are in the post. So if you're talking to people in Jerusalem, we might look like we function normally, that there's, we're high functioning complex trauma. So we can go to work, we can function, but you say one word at a checkpoint at one of us and there will be an explosion. There's a lot more domestic violence within our societies than there is in other societies. There's a lot of explosions that happen internally than externally. There's a lot of diseases, and part of the problem, which I've already started seeing, and I think we will see an inflation in the future, is for Palestinians in the West Bank and diaspora and 48, they were not able to express any emotions relating to the genocide. So they can't express, they can't protest, they can't they can't do what the rest of the world is doing, at least in objecting to the genocide. So there's a huge amount of guilt that individuals have to carry because they're not able to support their brothers and sisters in Gaza. Plus, there's the fear of retribution, and plus the pressure of being in a secure state by the Israelis and also by the Palestinian authorities. The Palestinian authorities also oppressing and suppressing the Palestinian voices in the West Bank. Plus, you have the layer of the Israelis. And this means when you suppress all of these emotions, there will be a lot of physical illnesses. There will be an extreme amount of asthma, problems with the autoimmune. We're going to see a lot of diseases that are coming out because of the suppression of emotions, because the way we look, like the school that I come from, which looks at the human as the trauma is where the energy, where the electricity gets blocked in the body from expressing emotions at the moment of trauma, and this is where the disease will show up in the future. And if you're constantly having to hold all your emotions as people in 48 and pretend all the time and people please on a constant state, you're suppressing all of these emotions. You're suppressing the anger and rage, which should be the natural state for anyone in Palestine. So that's also one thing to look at if you're working with people from 48. and the West Bank is to look at the mirrors of also how their bodies are doing physically. And the physical will tell you what is happening on the emotional state, because sometimes it's very difficult, as I said, to speak, but we can tell, for example, yeah, I have shortness of breath. I've had, you can ask physically how they're feeling, what they're doing in their body, and the body will be the mirror to you. A lot of fear will be placed in the adrenal glands, will be placed in the kidneys. They will have issues. We will have a lot of issues of diabetes. We will have a lot of onslaught of adrenal fatigue. The chest and the grief and the sadness is lungs, asthma, and problems that are happening in the chest. People who are suppressing all the anger, I think we're going to have a lot of problems that have to do with the liver, with the skin, and our filtering system of the whole body. So it's important, if you cannot, if you are supporting someone from the West Bank, not to, if you can't ask about what is going on a daily basis, you can ask how their body is doing. And the body can give you an idea that triggers you to think, okay, maybe they're not able to suppress. How can I support them in expressing their emotions? And this is why I think art is one of the main fields that we need the most, especially in these places where we're not allowed to express, so that people are allowed to express through poetry, are allowed to express through writing. And I think one of the main things I would recommend is journaling, because it's very different when we try to talk about the trauma. And this is something like now we can jump into looking at Gaza, because one of the things that I found the most is a lot of people want to speak. And when they're talking to these friends that they've made in Europe and their supporters in Europe, they kind of try to tell the story over and over. And I think from good place, sometimes people ask them questions to understand what their situation is, because they want to support them. And of course, that is counterproductive, because your body doesn't understand the difference between when you are speaking the trauma and when you are undergoing it. So what happens is the body starts producing the same hormones, and starts producing cortisol and adrenaline, and you start reliving that trauma when you're talking and repeating it and describing it to people and trying to analyze it. And one way to do it is, if you want to speak to people, you ask them to have a piece of paper next to them and that they journal it. If it's extremely important for you to ask for their story. But the suggestion I would have is to always focus on trying to bring people back to the body. How's your body doing? Where do you feel the pain? Are you having any symptoms of anxiety? Like trying to come to bring them back to a place where they can where they can sense the body, rather than retell you the story over and over again. And if they must tell you the story, tell them to have a piece of paper. They can either doodle, draw, or they can write. And if people want to tell you the story, tell them, listen, you've said the story so much. I with all due respect, it's just not good for you to repeat the story, and start explaining to people why it's not good to keep telling the story, and that it's re-traumatizing and it reopens the wound. Another way to do it with women is to tell them if they're doing wara dawali, if they're making any food. And this is, I think, how we personally have been recovering from our traumas, because if you come into a Palestinian family, you will come into the kitchen, and that's where women share their traumas, and it's always over making food. It's always that we have something physical in our hands. And then when you're sitting in the coffee, the men are sitting together, they always have a masbaha. They always have the beads. And another very good way to tell people, like, do you have a beads? Do you have a masbaha? Can you like use it while you're telling me the story? Even if it's just sensorily, they're doing this instead of just repeating. It will help them kind of regulate. And it's the same thing for people in the West Bank, to try not to keep repeating the stories. And specifically for the West Bank, also because of the paranoia. So when you ask them questions, just expect that there's going to be a little bit of it won't feel as safe. And a lot of us, especially in the West Bank and now more in Gaza also, have experienced detention and arrests. So it's very important not to mirror the interrogation for any person that you're dealing with, and not to mirror that modality of I am the hierarchy and I will be asking questions and you have to respond. And this happens a lot with the human rights people. And I used to be in that field where you have to sit with people and you have to ask them the same story to repeat the gruesome details about everything that they have gone through, and you keep repeating and repeating. And it's like engraving the trauma within their nervous system and allowing them to live it over and over again. And it's important to think about different ways. If you're dealing with if you're physically in front of a group of people and you want to be able to support in the collective, I would say if people want to share their stories as a beginning to tell a little bit of their story, it would be over food while they're cooking. It would be over drawing. Also, clay is a great way. That's what we use in Jerusalem because we don't want people to also. We know exactly how our communities work. So when the kids are when my colleague Salam does the workshops, she's sitting, everybody has clay, she's working with clay, she's working with art, and people are able to express and allow for their nervous system to regulate with the clay. And for Palestinians, because of our connection to the land, clay is a great tool. It's a great way for us to be physical with our land, and at the same time, we are allowing things to be released, and we're using an artistic way of releasing it. If you feel that somebody wants your connection, um, tell them to tell you stories about somebody else. For example, if they just feel like they want to talk, and sometimes there's like bombing, and they want to stay on the phone just to feel safe, tell them to tell you about a day in Gaza before, or to tell you a story that's not as 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 nervous system wrecking as it is. And I'm just going to give you an example for the group that I was working with recently from Gaza. I said, okay, maybe it's because they've been outside of Gaza and we are in a safe container. We can try to do some talking. And it first of all, it was emotional for me. It broke me apart, and I couldn't support. At some point, I said, I just need a break. I need to go out. Can we go to the sea? Can we do something? Because I can't. Just from listening to one story, my nervous system got completely dysregulated. I wasn't able to support, and I wasn't able to hold the container. And it's from the feedback that I received from all of the people that I've been working with, is talking is re-traumatizing. So I think we had 99% from the group who said talking and repeating their stories is traumatizing. One of the things that people in Gaza find the most calming, the most soothing from everything that we've said and asked them about, talking comes in the bottom percentage. The highest percentage is praying. So understanding the culture that we come from, which is a culture that is the survival is connected, and the survival, the sumud, the resilience are connected also to the faith, and our ability to withstand and withhold through trauma is very much our faith. So when people go to Western modalities of talk therapy, it's very difficult for Western therapists or for Westerners to understand that people can say, Alhamdulillah, I lost 10 people of my family, Alhamdulillah. And we say that. And I've seen when I was working with the families who've lost entire families, they say, Alhamdulillah, I lost 10 people from my family, but my neighbor lost 40. So Alhamdulillah for what God has given me. And it's very important to understand where we come from culturally. We come from, the majority of the Palestinians come from traditional backgrounds, come from Muslim backgrounds. And also the Christians that live in Palestine are very traditional. So they are also more traditional and orthodox than you would find Christians to be in Europe. And they also hold on to the faith in very extreme, not extreme, but they hold on to the faith in order for their survival as well. So we see it also in the Christian communities in Gaza that are refusing to flee, that are refusing to move. And they call their martyrs they consider them also as martyrs, and they consider their presence there to be the protection of the Christianity's endurance on the land. So it's our faith is pretty much part and parcel in our resilience, and it's built in. And for people to survive a genocide, this is one of the most important pillars that we have, because if you take away the faith, and if people undermine it or people question it, you're questioning the core of our ability to withstand and withhold. Because if you find people who already have the faith, and I've seen Westerners come to where I was working with families from Gaza and question them, just like question, like, oh, but you lost, like, we heard that you lost your family, how are you doing? And when the person says, alhamdulillah, this is qada wa qadar, and we accept what God has given us, the foreigners start questioning, but how can you accept it? But like, aren't you sad? Aren't you heartbroken? Aren't you? But why aren't you feeling like this? And they kind of question our humanity because of our ability to have the resilience and have the faith. And it's as if it's a way to kind of, because their mind does not understand the way that people have the strength of the faith, so they kind of question it. And when they start questioning it, you see on the other side the people are kind of skeptical, and it's very discomforting. So trying to understand about our religion, about the culture that we come from, is very helpful in understanding the way that people can say, yes, alhamdulillah, we've lost this many people. This doesn't make us superheroes. This doesn't mean taking the Palestinians into the category of, oh my God, they're superheroes, their entire lives are destroyed and dismantled, but they are surviving. The trauma is still there, the grief is still there. But the if you think about the 7 stages of grief, um, uh, and you think about the Palestinian or the Islamic way of doing it, we are going through the first stage, and there is denial, but there's also, in that denial, there is surrender. So we have that stage of surrendering to the divine and asking for support and asking for help, and knowing that we are not alone in the grief. And this helps the grief, it helps us process the grief much faster than having to go through all the stages in pain. And part of it is also because we have the communities. So when you are grieving, we have the family, we have everyone around you for 3 days that are constantly supporting you and standing with you. And then you have the community support that's constant. This is at least in the West Bank, where the situation is a little bit easier. But now in Gaza, it's very hard for people to console each other, because there's millions, and everyone is encompassed within their own tragedy, and it's very hard to console each other. But they're still trying. There's still people you can see who are trying to teach music, trying to teach some schools, trying to do some hifz, some Quran, and trying to hold the people together. So it's important to look at that, and to look at how the communities work within that framework of healing, and how we support each other as communities. Because if you do go through the trauma is, your body goes through the trauma if you are isolated and separated from someone. But if you are being held by somebody at the moment that the trauma happens, and following the first shock stages, the level of trauma will not be as extreme. And we're lucky to still have those connections and the bonds. To give you an example from prisons, when Palestinians go through the first stages of interrogation, and that's where you get the torture, you get the horrible treatment by the Israelis while they're trying to get the questioning. But that, of course, was before now. Right now, it's a constant state of torture. It doesn't stop at a stage. But in the previous times, once you move from the interrogation into the prison system, we have for the woman, for example, the eldest of the women, they are in charge of taking care of the youngest, the youth, and then you have a group who's responsible for the woman. And when you come in, you're taken into a group care, where you first, of course, there's also security to secure the group and to ensure who is coming in. So you do get a little bit of questions and asked for by the woman. Then you get showered, you get bathed, they give you clothes, they start feeding you, they take care of whatever. And you have this stage of healing the trauma within the prison system by the Palestinians, which has been established. If you are a youth in the men's prison, the first thing that they do when they hear your name, when you're coming, they go through the entire system of the prison in order to find someone from your neighborhood or from your village who can identify you, so that you are not also brought in by a stranger. You're immediately connected to somebody who knows you. And we have these communities that try to at least secure people and do the first aid and mental health first aid. هلا Israel has now dismantled these systems throughout the past 3 years, but there are still some structures available. But if you think about that and you think about the entire society in Palestine, this is how the tribe and the community is very much involved within the healing. I'm sorry. So now when we're talking about practical ways to support without re-traumatization, and how can this look like? One thing to think about is regulation of the nervous system, in the sense of um, how much intervention in the nervous system can you do. Let's say you are somebody who practices what I do, which is EFT, or if you practice EMDR, or if you practice polyvagal. One thing that's very important in the continuous trauma, which is different than PTSD. In PTSD, you want to try to help people to regulate their nervous system, to remove the fight, flight, fawn responses, and to enable people so that they go back into a homeostasis. They're able to go back into a state of calmness, and then you start working to unravel the trauma itself, whether be it with whichever technique. In a situation of continuous trauma, you can't do that. Why? Because you cannot change the way the nervous system is operating on survival mode, which is part and parcel important for our survival. Example, you're a youth from Silwan neighborhood in Jerusalem. Your nervous system is regulated that if you're a normal kid from Holland and you see people running at you with guns, you either run back or you find a way to escape. Versus a Palestinian from Silwan, you see the soldiers coming straight at you and you let them pass. If you're lucky enough, they pass you and you're frozen for a few seconds and then you walk back. If you're not, then you're captured, you're put on a wall and they strip search you and they beat you, they slap you around, and then they might let you go. If you take a child like that and you try to regulate their nervous system and you try to help them, or like the intention is to help, if you try to regulate the nervous system to a point where you are removing removing the threat and changing the way that their brain operates, which has been done to me by somebody very happily, meaning without meaning any harm. They tried to help me regulate my nervous system while I was still in Jerusalem. I was no longer able to function as a journalist. It stopped me, it paralyzed me for months from being able to do my work, because instead of free, like being normal when the soldiers arrive and not running, I started ducking and I started hiding and I started trying to escape from the soldiers. And once I escaped towards the soldiers for safety, because my original program had been shifted. So if you try to shift these responses, you will endanger people. If a child acts normally and runs, they will be shot in their back if they don't have the freeze response. If a child doesn't have has by mistake a fight response when a soldier hits them, then they will be dead. And we have these systems in place in order for us to be able to go through checkpoints and not get killed every time. We have these systems in order to be living under occupation, and sadly it's years of suppression of our emotions and years of living on fight, flight, fawn. And most of us have fun. Most of us are in a situation of built-in people pleasing, and people don't understand what that means. But to give you another example, if you put a Palestinian anywhere with somebody who's Western, we are automatically aligned and programmed in order to people please. What does this mean? You can be a foreigner who's not good-willed, and we will still please, and we will still answer, and we will still answer politely, and we will do what's requested. If you put any Palestinian, and this is why I cringe at the idea of anything that has to do with normalization and putting Palestinians alongside Israelis in order to talk. Our nervous system immediately when there's an Israeli in the room or there's a foreigner that has more authority goes into people pleasing. We've been programmed from childhood, and this is how we survive. Because in Palestine, if you don't bow down when not bow down, but if you don't walk properly when the soldier says walk or you listen to the orders, you risk death. So your nervous system is programmed, and it doesn't get deprogrammed immediately when you leave Palestine. You still have the same nervous system. So it's important when you work with the regulation of the nervous system not to alter our nervous system. And this is why the modality that I do, we don't mess with the nervous system. We try to regulate it, but we try to build resilience within the body, allowing the body to do its own work and trusting the body in doing the stages of creating resilience within the body. So when we do the Sufi whirling, it's not me taking the child and explaining to them fight, flight, or taking them through their trauma. I'm, I'm allowing for their brain to start firing between the prefrontal cortex and the amygdala faster and more in sync, so that when they are in a state of the soldier coming to shoot at them, they will still freeze, but then they'll walk out of the freeze a little bit faster. And then they're capable of being able to identify later in the house if their father comes at them that or somebody bigger than them comes at them, not to get into a freeze response and to use the prefrontal cortex in order to make the decisions. So there's different ways of doing these things without messing with the flight fun. And especially specifically right now for people in Gaza, it's very important to ensure it, because the ceasefire is no ceasefire. There's no such thing as peace. Yeah, there's no such thing as an end to the genocide until Gaza is fully rebuilt. So for people, they still need the senses to operate in a fight flight, because that means their survival. If they are still in a tent or in a house, they still need to duck every time there's a sound coming in. They still need to be able to go into freeze if something catastrophic, if a bomb falls, so that they can survive it. Otherwise, you've seen the cases of children whose hearts stopped in Gaza. And that's because the nervous system wasn't able to act quickly and put them in a freeze response. So they felt the pain. And that's when their heart birthed from the pain. This is why, subhanahu wa ta'ala, God is giving us these fight, flight, fawn in order to save us from situations which are like genocides and atrocities that we are living through. So we need to trust the body's way of working and not to think that we know better, not to think that we can come from outside, parachute, and be the savior, because that's also part of the problem when it comes to trying to help people, is if we think that we know and we can save them, whereas most of the time, 99% of the time, they know better how to protect themselves, how to ensure that their nervous system remains in a situation. Halla, when you're working with people who left Palestine, and let's say like the groups that I'm working with who are from Gaza, it's their nervous system is still operating on fight flight on. I've had a child who was nearly 6 years old who, when we were playing games in order to give them more leeway to move between the fight flight, she stayed on a frozen state. She could not get out of a freeze because her body felt threatened by the movement, and she immediately went into a freeze and couldn't get out of it until we helped her like start breathing, knowing that she's still with us and that she's in a safe place and coming back. So the nervous system is still operating on that. In the cases of people who left Gaza, there's you can work with the nervous system. You can start doing polyvagal exercise. You can start relaxing the nervous system and allowing it to rest and digest and building more spaces of ease, still with the understanding that there's a continuous trauma in terms of their families. So helping their nervous system and helping them regulate and remove the alarm systems from the, for example, from the zanane, from the sounds of the drones and the explosions, we can do these shifts. But I also was thinking about it. I helped this group of people to get to desensitize them to the sound of the drones and the fear that comes from that. But a part of me thought about it later. I was like, what if they go back to Gaza? Because many of these patients, they bring them out so that they can get medical treatment, but then they might go back to Gaza. And what if they go back to Gaza? I trust that the nervous system, of course, knows how to do its work, but it's also things to keep in mind for people who are outside. If they go back in, how does this affect them? How does this impact them? Now, when we're looking at the groups which are helping, how do you know when it's enough for you? And how do you do some self-care in order not to do damage to yourself? Hala, most of the people, if I do a count of hands here, probably would also come from backgrounds that have, they're trying to help the Palestinians, but they come from backgrounds of trauma themselves, or they have endured trauma themselves, and that's why they're trying to support. And this is usually the people who want to help are people who understand the pain, and who might be empaths. And being empath means you're hypersensitive. And if you are hypersensitive, this is the situations where you will get traumatized, and this will be the place where you might be getting re-traumatized and burned out because of your support to the Palestinians. One thing to understand is you cannot help people. I don't need to tell people this, but you cannot help people if you can't help yourself. And it's very important to be able to say to the people not to give them expectations higher than what you can help and what you can support. So it's very important to be frank, open. You know, this is what I can do. I can help you. I'm here for you. I can help listen to things. I can do some body checks with you, but I cannot help remove the trauma. If you are teaching them, you can tell them that I'm here to support you in this process of learning, language, training together, but I cannot eliminate the pain that you're in, and I cannot help support you with more than that. It's very important to be very specific and very clear and very setting expectations with people who are in serious, serious need of support. And in terms of being able to think about how this trauma affects you, if you choose to support the Palestinians, you don't need to be watching the news coming out of Gaza on a daily basis. Because the burnout doesn't happen actually from supporting people directly. It happens from being fed the information constantly all over the time, and to be faced with all the images coming out from Gaza. So if you take the decision and you have the choice that you're going to help people, then there's no need for you to also excessively be on social media and to be excessively traumatizing yourself and exposing yourself to that. So being able to protect yourself from that and take the responsibility that, this is what, there's one thing that, like, you have to make a decision about where you put your energy. And it's like, if I'm supporting people who are, doing translation, that is it. This is my support. This is the level of support that I will be doing, and this is my focus. If I'm supporting people by giving trauma therapy, I will support 5 people. It's in my capacity. These are my 5, and that's it. You have to put limits to yourself, and you have to give yourself the structure to identify when I'm not going to be on the phone on the go 24/7. And you can tell people I'm here, I'm supportive, but I cannot respond constantly to your messages. Your nervous system is part of the Palestinian story of survival. So you need to be able to also honor your capacity and your strength to be within the collective and to help us. And just remember, there's no saviorism. You're not there to save, you're there to support. And the more saviorism that you have, the more chances of burnout that you have. So when you feel unable to say no, unable to set boundaries with the people that you're supporting, then you kind of have to say, oh my God, okay, am I going into the savior mode? Do I think I'm the only person who's going to help these people? Do a self-check with yourself. And remember that you cannot help people without putting boundaries and showing them how to protect their own boundaries. So it's a lesson for you, and it's also a lesson for them to be able to take care of themselves and regulate.
Just keep doing your regulation so that you can help them regulate themselves. And if you're an empath without regulation, you're going to collapse and you're not going to be able to function. Your empathy won't be useful to them. So stay empathetic, stay feeling, stay connected, but just put the limits on how and where you can support so that you don't burn out, so that you can help more and more people. We want you to help people. We don't want you not to help people. So we just want you to do it mindfully and to be able to take breaks. And I know it's very hard to say no to people in Gaza when they're calling, but you can also put, the best way that I found it is I put the time frame. Like I'm giving every day 2 hours to respond. That's it. Outside of the window between wahade and 1 and 4, I'm out. I do not respond. And you can tell them very clearly, this is the window that I can answer your messages. And this is the window where I can support. Anything outside of these 2 hours, I am not, because I have to be there for my family. So don't be, and I think they will also respect the fact that you're putting boundaries and the fact that you're supporting them in a healthy manner. And in these 2 hours, you're there, you're focused, you're with them. So see what works for you and protect your energy so that you can also support them. Hala, to think about physically things that we can do, tasks that we can do in order to support them. Breath work, when we're talking about breath work, because that's one of the ways to help people regulate, and I think it's a very good way to go through the emotions and the nervous system. The 7-11 breath that we just did when we started, this is one of the most important ones, I would say. And it works to, as I said, move us from fight, flight, fawn into rest and digest, but it doesn't shift our normal systems. So request on N is overwhelming. Yes, so the requests will be overwhelming, and this is why you have to put the window of time of when you listen, when you answer, and you have to be the keeper of your own energy, and you have to protect your boundaries. They're not going to do it for you. They are in need of support, so they're going to nag all the time. But it's your duty to be able to manage the scope of work that you do and the scope of time that you can give them. And if you do work with them, when you do open the call, start giving them some somatic tools. Be like, listen, before you start talking, before you have let's just do some breath work together. And this will help whatever engagement that you're having with them to be also a little bit more protective of them and of you. So 7-11 breath is great. The box breath is very good. Don't do anything chaotic. Don't do any breath work that is extreme of holding the breath for too long. With people from Gaza, no closing the eyes whatsoever. We need them fully in their bodies, and we don't need them to dissociate. Dissociation would be the easiest way out for them. Don't do visualizations with people from Gaza. Of like close your eyes and imagine that you're here or there. They need to be there physically. La samahallah, something happens. They need to be intact and able to respond and able to get up and run if they need to. So try to make sure that any breath work that you're doing is breath work that keeps them awake, keeps them with you, keeps them in the moment. You can do grounding work with the body as much as you want. You can do stretches, you can do releases. One good thing to do is a lot of shaking, and you can just I normally just say put your feet on the ground, keep them feet fully on the ground, and just shake your entire body. Of course, respecting culturally, if being alone, space, all of these things. But shaking, if they can't shake the whole body, then you can just tell them, okay, let's shake your hands before we talk. Let's just do some movement. You can ask them to do dabke for you. You can ask them to teach you how to do dabke. You can ask them to do movements that can also be lively for you and for them to interact physically. One thing that is amazing is to do humming. So if you're a foreigner and you don't know any Arabic, you can do humming of, take these 3 letters and you repeat with them. Alif, Lam, Mim. Alif, Lam, Mim. So you can do Alif, Lam, Mim, and you keep humming them and repeating it with them. This calms their nervous system, calms the brain. It like reconnects and aligns. It comes from the Quran, and they will automatically recognize it. And it's very simple. Alif, Lam, Mim. This is like the easiest humming that you can do with them on the phone, and you can do it together. Do these things before you start the conversations and then a lot of the talking. Another one that you can do for humming is kaf ha. What's very hard actually for non-Arabic speakers. Kaf ha ayn sad. So stick to alif lam mim if you cannot speak Arabic. If you can speak Arabic, it's ka ha ayn sad. Ka ha ayn sad. صح? Did I say it right? Kaf. When ka ha عين
يا
صاد.
يا كافها يا عين صاد.
Yeah, okay, هاي اللي نسيناها. يسلموا نور. So you can do this one as a mantra. You can do it as humming it together. That's also very good. Anything that has to do with sound, you can tell them, let's sing together. Like, what's one song that you want to teach me بالعربي? Singing is very good for nervous system regulation. If they call you and they're in a state of fight flight, if they call and they're in a state of that you can notice anything that's suicidal, you can recommend immediately to go and do wudu. Wudu is a supplication. It's cleansing basically that we do before the prayer, and it's very good because the kaha, yeah, thank you. You can do the washing, and it's important that they do the washing with cold water. But I'm sure that right now in Gaza, that's probably the only thing that we have accessible. Yes, ablution. So for doing the wudu, you can recommend it for people in also if they are outside of Palestine, just be like, go wash your hands, to go do some wudu and do some prayers. It's always good to remind people because most of the time when they are in that state, they don't remember. And if they find somebody who's telling them, go wash your face, go get cold water on your face, go wash your hands with very cold water. It helps get the nervous system, tell them to shake immediately, to sit with you and to shake, to do the breath work, the massages of the ears. I just recorded a session in Arabic. It's on YouTube, and I recorded it also with the Interpreters for Justice. So you can have access to that. You can look at the different practices that we did. It's in Arabic, but it's very visual. Anybody can just notice what we're doing, and you can repeat it. You can do these movements. The most important recommendation is focus on the body. Notice how the body is also moving when you are talking to them. If you have a camera, if they're able to open camera. Being an empathetic witness, while at the same time making sure that there is no harm being done. And the harm can be done through repeating of the stories constantly, through letting them express and repeat without any regulation to the nervous system. And yeah, I think that concludes what I wanted to share mostly. And I can answer a few questions if people have. Well, if we've been taking.
Thank you, Ashira. If anyone wanted to speak, you can unmute yourself.
Raise their hands if they have a question. The chat stuff. What they say are. Okay, so I just saw the last message about people being hungry and in need. So yeah, that's the main ask for everyone in Gaza. It's we need the genocide to end in order for people to recover, and in order for any talk about trauma therapy or any type of healing to take place. It's impossible to support people emotionally and do any trauma work when people are freezing to death from cold water and when they don't have food. And this is why we need it. The main thing we want is for this genocide to end. And until it does, what we can is to try to support in the ways that we have possible. And I know that many of you raise funds and support individual families, and this helps, this supports. But yes, we need the collective we need the collective pressure and we need the activism in order to get to the point of ending the genocide and to put pressure on Israel day and night until they end this horror. Yeah, Nora, we're recording it so you can watch it. Yeah, we do have, so culturally speaking, in terms of Palestinians asking for support or for help, mental health is a taboo. And I think it also saved us because the only available modalities that we have in Palestine are Western talk therapy, and it's re-traumatizing. So, in some way it is good. But people do ask. We've seen more people. There's a lot of, like in my project, we've been training people. You have Noor and Ahmed who have been working in the West Bank. We have Majdi. We have a few Palestinians who, Noor is actually posting about EFT. EFT has been one of the modalities that we've been using, and it has been amazing to work with Palestinians with continuous trauma. And LP as well, coaching. So they've been doing a lot of this work. We have art therapy. And there are things that Palestinians are more likely to accept. So if you say breathwork, Islamic psychology, they're more likely to listen. If it's something that has to do with somatics, if it's something that has to do with movement and the body, we're more likely to listen and to want, because of all of the stigma and the taboos around mental health, and because many of the psychologists, sadly, and the therapists that we have been giving a lot of prescription drugs, and so we have a whole other problem of addiction and on prescription drugs because of what. So a lot of people are, a lot of people don't try to ask, and in our culture, yes, it's seen as a weakness. So for many, it's very difficult to be vulnerable and to ask for support. This is why if you are supporting Palestinians, you can bring in the conversation. You can say that's their support. And just for all of you, whoever is supporting any Palestinians, we are offering in Catharsis Holistic Healing free trauma therapy for Palestinians with liberation modalities. Noor, who's writing, is moderating that. So we have a form that Palestinians can can fill, and then Noor connects them to a therapist. And Lo, if she's here, she's also connecting the English-speaking activists. So we support Palestinians, and we support the activists who are supporting Palestinians. So if you do need support while you're supporting Palestinians, we also love to help. We also support people from JVP, from wherever, whichever activist communities, the flotilla, whoever needs support, we're open. And we can only do that because we have a network of volunteers. And if you are a therapist and you want to support Palestinians, then please also check the website. You can volunteer with us to be one of the therapists who provides therapy. So that's on this website, you'll find the two forms: to volunteer or to receive support. And we're blessed to have Noor and Lo being able to support and volunteer to give this support for people. Do we train coaches? Yes, we train everyone. So for example, right now, next month in January, I will be running the first cohort for embodying liberation, and you're more than welcome to apply to enter the course. It's going to be 8 weeks course, and it's in my modality. It's an active meditation, which includes Sufism, includes culturally grounded ways of healing, and it's for Palestinians and also people of Black, brown bodies, people who have endured ancestral trauma, and that will run for 8 weeks. And so that's available also. I don't know if Danielle has the link to that. It's called the School of Radical Imagination that I'm running the course with. And
I get it.
Yeah. Thank you.
I see also there is 2 people who raised their hands.
And I can't see where they are.
Yeah, I
Can
think
you-
they can unmute themselves and speak. Yeah.
Zaina was the first. Yeah.
Hi.
Assalamu alaikum, Ashira. I'm Zaina. I started a collective called Wellness for Palestine, where we offer yoga, sound therapy, breathing techniques to activists and basically anyone who wants to join. But one funny thing I noticed, like in the Palestinian Muslim community, how do I deal with people thinking like this stuff is haram, like yoga and stuff like that? That's kind of one of the barriers we have. And also, one of our founders, she travels to Cairo and deals with refugees from Gaza, and she also tries to do the yoga and stuff, and she runs into like that haram, yoga's haram, breathing, all of that.
The breath work we can never consider haram. It's you know ونفخنا فيه من الروح. So it's about also knowing how to speak to our community and explaining to them breath work. It's pretty much Islamic psychology is breath work. We have if you're on the waiting list, you need to register now, by the way, for the course, because the registration is open and we only have a few days left. But I know that there's a few seats left. But yeah, for Zainab, so you just need to know how to communicate to our community. يعني Amina has been teaching yoga in Gaza, and she's been working with women in Egypt, and she does mainly yoga and she does EFT. She wears the hijab. She knows how to speak and represent the modality for the people to understand it in a way that this is an exercise. There's a lot going around about, like, if you do yoga, then you're connecting with the demons and all of these things. It's just about how you communicate and how you share with people. بس يعني art therapy, music, sound healing, these things people are receptive to, and they're getting more and more receptive, especially because of the situation right now. Somebody else with their hands raised?
Yes, there is a Tala, it's correct?
Yes. Salam Ashira, it's such a pleasure to be meeting you. I actually hosted a screening of Where Olive Trees Weep a few years ago, so it's an honor to be. I'm not sure if this is the time and place, but I was wondering if I can mention a specific client, and I understand if like this isn't the forum for it, but you said something that made me think of her. So yeah, I thought if we have the time, maybe I can ask a question. So she's from Jerusalem. She's never mentioned the occupation or anything about that, but when you said paranoia, it made a lot of sense for a lot of interpersonal situations she's having. So any suggestions on what to focus on in terms of, there's so many, it seems like, miscommunications with people where I'm seeing this pattern of feeling like people are out to get her. So I'm just wondering if you have any suggestions on how I can.
It's because people are out to get us. This is also intergenerational, so it's a teaching that is given to us since we were children. There's people always coming to get you, so you always have to be careful. You always have to cover your back. You always have to be watching what's coming, and especially in Jerusalem, because they're around us. So our families kind of try to be extremely overprotective, because there's Israelis that you can also be influenced by, and they can infiltrate the society. So it carries a lot of weight, and probably she might have some issues with shoulders and back. Yeah. And the way I would do it is to try to make her aware of the politics that might be connected to it. So asking her the questions of, so where do you feel that there are people actually trying to come after you? Like, are there people coming after their society? Do you feel like there's a bigger threat? And trying to let her see, leading her and to understand that this is not very much untrue. This is true. You come from a culture where there is this threat, but just identifying when is the real threat versus when it is paranoia. And for her to understand that, to make the connection between that, she needs to start understanding and looking at her like her grandparents and her mothers, and what voices do they normally say? Who's the voice that always tells you, be careful, someone might do this to you, be careful, somebody. So try to go with her into the voices in her head that use this kind of tone of people are trying to hurt you, someone is trying to come after you, and to see if she can bring it from the past to her present, and then she will start learning to discern that this is, this is the. A friend of mine said that we Palestinians are always ready to run, and the moment something happens anywhere, we're ready with a bag to go. So it's just about her knowing that this imminent feeling of threat might not be something that she's shouldering. She's carrying something from her parents and her grandparents, this constant fear. And to also try to understand the legal situation. Because, for example, if you carry a Jerusalem ID and if she goes to the West Bank too much, then there's always this threat that she might lose her ID if she goes into the West Bank. And it's connected. I think it would be connected mainly to their status and their ability to stay safe where they are.
Wow.
I hope that helps.
Thank you so much. For sure. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Shiva also raised her hand. Shiva, you can unmute yourself and ask your question.
Thank you, Salam Ashira. Thank you for your time. This has been really, really, really helpful. I'm working as a psychologist now with some Palestinians who are living in the UK, and some of the people I work with have talked about wanting to express and let out some of the grief and the rage that they have been holding in. But they find that it's either kind of really stuck within them, or that they are not sure how and where to do this safely without re-traumatizing people within their community. And I guess I was wondering what your thoughts might be about that.
I would say for the UK, they can, my main recommendation would be to go to the protests.
Yeah.
Because that would be where they are able to scream, shout, and get their rage out and be surrounded by community feeling safe. That would be one thing. If you have people who also have many of the diaspora Palestinians have the family fear of integration. So they're worried that if they raise their voice, that even if they're second, third generation passport holders, there's this fear that they're going to come and get us if we open our mouths, because our parents would have said, don't talk, don't speak in Arabic, they would find us. If you have people like that, I would recommend for them to put themselves into things that are physical. So either to go into boxing, either to go into a situation where they're able to shout without being seen as an Arab doing it or as a Palestinian doing it and releasing. So depending on where they stand, if they're able to be physical and open and scream and be in protest and be in community. If they can't, go find a Dabke class. Because in Dabke class, you get to shout, you get to stomp, you get to be in community, and you're held in that container. And little by little, it breaks that fear from the society that surrounds you.
That's really helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Now, Ana Bonnier also raised her hand. If she's there, Ana, you can unmute yourself and ask your question, please. Okay, also Susanna also raised her hand. So Susanna, I'm sorry if I'm saying your name incorrectly, so you can also ask your question.
Hi. Well, first of all, thank you for this meeting. It's super informative. I just wanted to ask a question in reference to what you said before about advising the Palestinians in UK to go to protest, to shout, to like scream and express their rage. I'm just wondering, like, given the current situation that we see that people actually get arrested in UK for protesting for Palestine, like, if you had that in mind saying that, or like maybe could it be re-traumatizing?
It's if you weigh in the trauma of being silenced and isolated and not being able to express yourself at the time of a genocide and the risk of being in a protest, I'm not saying to go and say the specific words that will get you into prison, because it's very specific that you can go into the protest and say even the same thing about Palestine action. Just the way that you say it can define how you will be if you will put yourself at the risk of detention. And I think for Palestinians, we don't need to take that. We don't need to be to put ourselves in that place to take such a high risk. But you can be with the thousands of people who are chanting, who to feel that energy of being in a container which is supportive, and to see others who are supporting us. I think it's a lower risk to take than to be isolated at home and not be able to express it.
Then we also have Jude and Anna, who had an issue with her phone, but she will ask her question after Jude.
Hi, thank you so much. Thank you, Ashira. That was really informative, and it gave realistic sort of expectations, I think, of what we can do to support. I did some work on a phone with somebody, and I am a somatically trained trauma therapist, and I found it really difficult after about 6 or 8 sessions to actually see what she was describing, what was going on in her body. But I really felt I needed to see and observe what was happening. I'm just wondering if there's any way I could come to the region. I don't know where there'd be a safe place to be, to work in a community of people supporting on the ground, so I could help physically on the ground in the area. West Bank, Jordan, Egypt.
Where are you based?
UK.
The UK. So there's a group of Palestinians from Gaza who are in the UK. I'm coming in 2 weeks to the UK, and I'm supposed to meet with them.
Right.
But I think that would be an option to support the people who are in the UK if that's the easiest. Second place is if you want to support. We have people in Egypt, we have people in Belgium. In Belgium, we have 3,500 families currently from Gaza that are located in Belgium. Jordan and Egypt are not the easiest places to operate, but there are people there who can also support. But I would start with the UK because of your proximity, because you're there.
Okay, how can I contact? Is there someone hosting the community in the UK?
Yeah, I'm still trying to reach out to them to communicate when I will be doing a session for them. But if you can send me, if Daniel has my email, if you can share my email, Daniel, if people have further questions, you can also email me. But share with me, send me email, Jude, and I will see if I can connect while I'm there, and let you know how to do it, and if you can arrange a few sessions for them, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, I'd love that. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Welcome.
We have 2 more people who raised their hands. Ashira, Anna, if she's there now.
Hi, yes, finally it's working. Thank you so much. I have one question that came to my mind, and it was, I'm often wondering, like how, I mean, I see people who like had to come, for example, to Germany, and the system is working very differently. I feel like in Palestine or Lebanon, for example, it's much more fluid, and you can do a lot of things like by talking from one person to next, and then somehow things get done. But here it's much more bureaucratic, and like if one way doesn't work, then there's not a second way. And I myself often feel kind of traumatized by this, even as somebody from Germany. But I feel like how this must be like another trauma layer on people who are coming from from places where things work more organically. And I wonder if you have, I don't know, if you just have anything to say to that, maybe not like an answer or something.
It's horrible, like from what I saw, even not in Germany. Yeah, in Germany, I would imagine it's double times hard, but from people who are from Gaza and are in Belgium,
Yeah.
it's ridiculous the situation. They've got an asylum center next to a military air base where they have to listen to air jets flying.
Yeah.
And at the time the children are ducking because they think it's Israelis gonna bomb them. So.
Yeah.
And the only way that I see it happening is that you need people like in Belgium, there's an amazing woman who's doing support and helping these families, moving them, supporting them in the legal system, supporting them in the language system, in schools. And what we need is volunteers in Europe who support in that in aspect of all the Palestinians who are getting relocated to where the bureaucracy and the system and the language and everything is just so isolating and very difficult for them to navigate.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, Ashira. I understand we've run out of time, but we would have one more person. So are you?
One more person, yeah.
Okay. So Jemima, you can unmute yourself and ask your question. Sorry if I didn't say your name correctly.
No, you did. Thank you so much. Thank you, Ashira. I've been furiously scribbling down your every word. My question is around your point about faith being the most important pillar of Palestinian mental health and prayer being the most sort of soothing thing you can do in the therapeutic Muslim therapist. If there's any sort of resources you would recommend where I could sort of respectfully and sensitively bring that into the room, or any ways of bringing it into the room, basically.
There's a lot of resources that are now open. There's the Islamic psychology groups, but I think they're also very much confined to Muslims. But I would say look at also an easy bridge for someone who doesn't know too much about the religion but wants to understand is to go through Sufi ways of understanding. So you can learn a few of the words that we use for hamd. What I use is dhikr, which is the repetition of certain things. Just to understand the mentality is to go to Sufi resources. So there's Sufi Live, which gives classes, lectures, information about like how these things connect to us. There's the Omid Safi, who has talks. There is what's his name, Khan, another resource that talks about so like there's different schools of Sufis that speak out about the connection between mental health, and they kind of also make it easier to understand Islam for somebody who's from outside. But one thing to say is that the faith is not very much, it's therapeutic, but it's on a normal basis. So this is how we survive normally. So if you are to support someone who's in Gaza, you tell them like, if you have a break, go pray. But if you are physically trying to support someone and doing the therapy, just understanding that when they come with responses about their faith, like Alhamdulillah, we believe that this is the God's choice and decision, and we don't question it. For example, we don't question death. We don't question when people are murdered. We know that there's a lot of acceptance and surrender that goes through it. So just not nagging into the question would be you can do, which is not digging into it, but just more like respectfully understanding it and letting it flow.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for being here, everyone, for taking the time and for the support and the help that you are providing for Palestinians. And yeah, inshallah, with more and more people helping and supporting, first of all, we break the isolation and we support each other and we create communities that support each other. And at least the people in Gaza know that there are people out there that want to help and want to support. And thank you for doing what you're doing and keep your voices loud for Gaza. Salam.
Thank you so much, Ashira. We are deeply grateful for this session and everything you do. Thank you everyone for joining us. And
السلام عليكم.
Ashira.
شكرا.
بأمان الله.
Thank you so much.
شكرا أشيرة.
العفو. أحب أسمع أصواتكم.
سعد لي إياكي.
Ashira, can I ask you something?
Yes.
I will soon become a physiotherapist, therapist with an EFT technique. My coach is Noor and Ahmed.
رائع. Very good hands.
I want to present my sessions to people in Gaza. Does it affect the efficiency of my work because I am in a position in survival mode and I cannot go out in my place?
You're in Gaza.
No, I'm in Jordan.
You're in Jordan. Okay. All right. But you want to support people in Gaza.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. It's amazing. وبتحكي عربي, so this is exactly what we need. The one thing just to make sure of is to not go into the deep levels of trauma therapy. So you don't go into the tearless trauma. You don't go into trying to find like release a phobia or release major events. What you do is first aid. So it's tapping in order to remove, to regulate their nervous system, to calm them down. But you don't go into what they've experienced in the last 3 years. You don't touch, because you don't want to give them a sense of safety when they're not supposed to be safe. فلا سمح الله, they're annoyed from the zannane or from the bombs. You can't work with them to regulate and sensitize, لأنه this can be their survival mechanism. So you need to make sure that you're doing things just to ease their pain at the moment, but not to deal with the actual traumas that they have endured in the last 3 years until the genocide is over or until they're safe enough.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you again. Shukran.
Thank you, everyone. We'll be sharing the recording with everyone who registered, and also Ashira will be adding it as a resource on her website. So thank you, everyone, for joining.
Thank you. Salam. بأمان الله.
Bye.